back to like the acoustic guitar that I've had since I was 12 and just play it and sing. And of course, you are very familiar. Like, I'm super familiar with my own voice. I'm super familiar with that guitar. I'm super familiar with CPS as a sonic space. I'll just do that. Or I'll just play my piano or something, and it just kind of resets. Sometimes I use references, but a lot that's dangerous territory for me, because if I pull out the wrong reference at the wrong time, I feel like it's going to throw me for the whole day, kind of thing. So yeah, if I really need to reset my ears, I just go back to things that I know really, really, really well, and that's my own voice in a space that I'm comfortable with, and maybe an instrument.
That's cool. That's a really cool answer.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I'm curious why references throw you for curveballs. I feel like a lot of people are referencing all the time just to like get a ballpark of if they're in the ballpark. And it sounds like you just know where the song needs to go without any of that, and like the references might, throw you off.
I think that's what I'm striving for, and that's why I fear the references might throw me off. Also, sometimes, like if I've been mixing a lot that week or producing a lot that month or something, I might latch on. Well, no, I definitely will latch on to different things about even a song that I've heard thousands of times, right? So I could latch onto the wrong thing in that moment, and that might just send me down a rabbit hole I really don't need to go down. And I find that with mixing as well. Like I really try and limit my use of references. Like I use it to tune my ears or tune my brain. If I'm working with an artist for the first time as a producer and mixer, I'll ask for a playlist and just like passively listen, like just put it on. And then, I might narrow it down so that like right before we go into record, I'm listening to these things that get me in a certain headspace. But I find if I fall into the trap of toggling back and forth, like straight up A/B referencing, I lose sight of what makes the song I'm working on special, and I'm trying to build it like this other thing potentially, and that's not going to serve the song ultimately, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm writing, producing, mixing, mastering. It's got to be about what's right in front of me, because it's never going to be directly comparable, right? So
wow, that's a really cool point.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no, I totally dig that. I feel like, often if I'll reference when I'm in the middle of a mix, it'd be like, this sounds different like that, but like it has nothing to do with, you know what I mean? Even if it's the same genre or the same like acoustic, it's like there's never a perfect reference track for any song. You know what I mean? No. Like unless you're copying the song.
Totally, yeah. So it's just, and sometimes though you need to be shaken up. Like sometimes you throw on your reference mid-mix and you're like, what the f- was I thinking? And it puts you
like no
back.
Sub here. What the hell,
exactly. So sometimes, of course, references have saved my butt in that way a few times. But I do like to just be aware of how it can steer my focus, or how it can steer my priorities away from what I'm actually hearing in the song that I'm working on. So
cool. Having mastered now, become, I guess, mostly a mastering engineer. What has that imparted on your mixing and your producing?
Oh man, I can't even. Like everything. I think the biggest, just the way that I EQ and the way that I approach EQ, and compression, is so different. I think I've learned more about compression, limiting included, just dynamics and controlling dynamics in the last couple of years than I think I have in the last 15. And that's just by really breaking down, every aspect of it, even just the basics, like attack and release times, release delay times, the curves associated with release times, frequency dependent attack and release, like all just like really breaking down and focusing on all these little tiny elements of the tools that we use every single day, and the way that they contribute to a whole has just changed how I think, or maybe I don't think about them as much. I'm not even really sure what it is, but I do know that I do everything completely differently than before I started mastering. I do think it's because I've broken each element down and hyper-focused and zoomed in so much, even more than I thought I was doing. Like I thought I was already hyper-focused when I was mixing. It doesn't even compare. And just the way that, in mastering, your tools are generally, they're not limited because they have to be. They're generally limited by choice. You have your specific tools. If you introduce too many options, I mean, you're just going to rabbit hole forever, right? So
Right.
we've chosen to some really specific pieces of gear, some really specific tools, and we use only what we need, and we really get the most out of those pieces that we can. So I just think that working in that way, maybe it's even, just narrowing it down, that has helped me focus on really like getting into how each element works and then works together, and just like really zeroing in on that. It's changed.
It sounds like you're working less haphazardly.
In some ways, but in other ways, I'm able to just kind of trust my gut a lot more,
Right, because you become more, when you know how something works better, you just fall back on like,
Yeah.
I got this,
Yeah, I think I've internalized a lot of how, like, I mean, if you had asked me whether, like, if I understand compression, if you had asked me if I understood compression 3 years ago, I would say, well, yeah, of course I do. I do it every day. I've used 1,000 different types of compressors or whatever, plugins. I teach it. I know my shit. But today, the way that I understand, and again, I keep going back to these abstract terms like react to compression or compressors, is so different than 3 years ago today. So yeah, I think a lot of that comes from just having to break it down and then internalizing it and just using it in a new way as well. How those sort of three things have come together has changed how I do everything.
I love it. Mastering engineers are known for, working with a ton of clients all the time. How do you stay on top of all of your organization shit?
I don't. I'm so bad at it. Bless my clients for being, I don't know. It's just a weird time for that. This always happens. When did we launch the website? I didn't have a lot of time to do this before COVID, basically. So I don't know. That's the answer to that question. I have Brock helping me. We help each other with I'm assuming you're talking about like the administrative side of things. I'm an administrative nightmare. Emails terrify me, and they're so hard to keep up with. You just do it, I guess. I don't really have an answer. You just do it. You just get on there every day. Like I usually have. Like
you should see my personal inbox. Like I have 2 emails, right? So like my business email is like I'm pretty on top of that one, but like the personal inbox is a disaster. I have like 4,000 unread emails. Or something.
Okay, that would stress me out. See, there's a little button. You just click it, and then it makes all the notifications go away. That's where I would be at if I were you. But yeah, no, my personal
I'm
inbox,
almost there, yeah.
Oof. Yeah, but I don't know. You just get up in the morning. Like I've become a night owl during COVID. Like I don't know what it is. I function best between like 5 p.m. and like 4 a.m.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know. It's frightening. But there's nobody keeping me like
to a schedule.
Yeah. So that's just where I've landed. So I need a lot of time. I'm trying not to get up at 5 p.m. So I need a lot of time to sort of wake my brain up. So that's email time.
Thanks for waking up early for me. So
yeah, right? This is the earliest. I was showered before 10 a.m. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wow. You clearly don't have a 2-year-old, so.
No. That's amazing. Yeah, they'll keep you on a proper schedule, won't they?
Yeah, no choice.
Yeah, exactly. You were a night owl? Too bad. I know. I just like to set aside email time, and that's the biggest thing. And then, especially during COVID, just giving yourself a lot of room in your schedule, I think, is really important. And then things can kind of fall into place. And if unforeseen, quarantine has happened a few times, where everything just sort of gets pushed back by a couple of weeks. And I don't know, people are just generally very understanding during these times too. So that helps. And then we have like whatever software, like I don't even know what they call like it would be a content management system, things like that for invoicing and client database and keeping all that stuff in order. I mean, I didn't have to think about it a lot either because Brock has it real dialed. So I just kind of waltzed in. I was like, I could just do my thing.
Sounds like a good setup for you.
It was a pretty good setup. Yeah.
That's great. Do you feel like you have a trademark sound within mastering? Is that something that you strive for? Or is that something for you that you actually don't strive for?
I think the easy answer is that I don't strive for that. I strive to be invisible and serve the song, but I think naturally my entire music consumption history is going to contribute to a sound of sorts. So I think I compare what I do to what Brock does pretty regularly, because we're often even overlapping on projects, right? So I've noticed that I really like low end, and that's a high on my priority list. Not that I'm going to like jack up a bunch of low end necessarily, but like that is, if there's something off about the low end, if it's making my limiter or my compressor feel weird, or if it's just like if it's too swampy, or if it's not hitting hard enough, that's just something I'm really, really focused on. And I think even like when I was sending my mixes off to other people to get mastered, that was like the very first thing I would listen for when I got the masters back as well. So just something about getting that low end right is very important to me as an engineer, and hopefully that doesn't translate too differently in the final product. Like hopefully I don't have much of a stamp, but that is definitely something I'm focused on, and that makes for a pretty different approach, I think, and a sonically different end product than someone who would be more focused on even just like what was going on 10K and above. I tend to leave that stuff alone because I feel like mixers, unless they're like I need a bump here, mixers have their high end where they want it generally. And they have their mid-range.
That's really cool.
A lot of the time. Yeah. But the low end.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've sent off mixes to mastering, and then it comes back all of a sudden like sibilance issues that didn't exist in the mix exist now because like the top end was boosted, because like that's something that you are listening for a lot in the mix, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I feel like I probably have a very similar taste to you, because I feel like, I'm a bass player, so low end has always been important for me, but like I'm like the first thing I'm listening to is like just to make sure the bass sounds good. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Does the low end feel right? Mm-hmm. That's so I totally dig that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And if I were to send back a master that was more harsh or more sibilant than the mix I received, that's like my worst nightmare. Hopefully that never happens. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it will happen. But that's something, I really don't, I try not to mess with that area. I like sweetening. I like controlling, to bring out what's there. But I'm not a big, like, boost. I often like boosts that's just on the super, super, super high end of things right before my filters, my low-pass filters. So, like, 18K maybe, 22K. I'll mess with that. Usually I think I'm just kind of compensating and just trying to like cinch everything up a little bit. But yeah, I'm super, super cautious. I tread very lightly, 5K, 6K, even below 12K. I'm treading very lightly in that area because I feel like most people have it dialed, unless they tell me. A lot of people just tell me like, hey, my cymbals are out of control. I don't know what to do. You fix it. And then I will. Then I have lots of tools, but
right. There's no rules.
Exactly.
Yeah. No master. No master is the same from what I gather.
Oh yeah, it's crazy all over the place.
Yeah. Can you touch on communication with the artists that send you their masters? Mm-hmm. How incommunicado are you? What do revisions look like?
Oh yeah. I'm there for whatever the client needs. I love communicating. It's just for all aspects of music making, that is so important. In fact, that's for me. For sure when I'm producing, that's the number one most important thing. And that's translated to mastering as well. It's just, whether it's verbal or not, like establishing communication is very important. And so sometimes it's just like a quick like phone call or email, and you just like lay out your needs. And sometimes people's like shortness of their communication is just as effective. Like, okay, you're leaving it up to me. Like that tells me like you're leaving it up to me. You trust me. It's a need to know basis type of